Dilek Tunan, you're watching A News. Let's see the top stories this hour. Donald Trump and Xi Jinping conclude a high-stakes summit in Beijing after 2 days of talks. Israel-Lebanon talks continue in Washington as a ceasefire deadline nears. And OTS member states hold informal talks on AI and digital development in Kazakhstan. Trump has left Beijing after 2 days of high-level talks with Xi Jinping, with both sides describing the summit in positive terms. But beneath the warm language, key questions remain over trade, Iran, Taiwan, and how far China is prepared to go in turning broad understandings into concrete commitments.
US President Donald Trump has concluded his final round of talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping and departed Beijing after a 2-day summit focused on trade, security, and global conflicts. The meetings took place at Zhongnanhai, the Chinese leadership compound beside the Forbidden City, where the two leaders held formal talks and toured the gardens together. Chinese state media described the visit as historic, while Trump called the talks very successful and unforgettable.
So far, we have established a new relationship between our two countries, a constructive and strategic relationship. This can be said to be a milestone visit, and we have reached many understanding on cooperative outcomes.
Trade was one of the main subjects of discussion. Trump said China had agreed to buy 200 Boeing aircraft, as well as more American agricultural products and oil. But China's foreign ministry stopped short of publicly confirming those specific deals during a briefing on Friday. The talks also covered Iran, Ukraine, rare earth exports, military communication and cooperation on law enforcement and tourism. Trump said Xi had assured him that China would not provide military equipment to Iran, and both leaders agreed that Iran should not obtain nuclear weapons.
We did discuss Iran. We feel very similar to Iran. We want that to end. We don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. We want the straits open. We're closing it now. I mean, they closed it, and we closed it on top of them. But we want the straits open, and we want them to get it ended, because it's a crazy thing. They're a little bit crazy. When it's no good, can't have it. They cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Taiwan remained one of the most sensitive issues during the summit. Xi warned that mishandling the matter could lead to conflict, while US officials later said American policy towards Taiwan had not changed. Despite warm public language from both governments, many details remain unresolved, including the scale of future Chinese energy purchases, the final terms of any Boeing agreement, and whether Beijing will play a direct role in talks with Iran.
Putin is expected in China next week, just days after Trump's high-profile visit to Beijing. A News' Mahnur Maktoum looks at the timing and what it could signal.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is expected to visit China next week, only days after the summit between Chinese President Xi Jinping and US President Donald Trump in Beijing. The Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post reported that Putin's visit is likely to take place on May 20th, citing sources familiar with the matter. The visit is expected to focus on strengthening China-Russia strategic coordination at a time of shifting global alliances, ongoing tensions with the West, and continued economic and security cooperation between Beijing and Moscow. Analysts said that the timing of the trip, immediately following Trump's visit, reflects China's efforts to maintain close ties with both major powers, while reinforcing its position as a central diplomatic player. Xi and Putin have met frequently in recent years, holding more than 40 meetings since Xi took office in 2013. The two leaders have continued regular in-person summits and phone calls throughout the Russia-Ukraine war and amid growing rivalry with the United States. The Kremlin has not officially announced the exact date of the visit, but spokesman Dmitry Peskov confirmed this week that Putin would visit China very soon, adding that preparations for the visit have already been completed. Mahnur Maktoum, A News, Beijing.
Diplomatic efforts are continuing in Washington to ease the Israel-Lebanon conflict, with talks described by the US State Department as productive and positive. But with a fragile ceasefire due to expire on Sunday, both sides remain far apart. Lebanon wants Israel to implement the truce, while Israel says the focus is disarming Hezbollah.
Diplomatic efforts are underway in Washington to ease the Israel-Lebanon conflict as cross-border fighting continues and both sides set out competing demands for a possible security arrangement. A US State Department official described the latest Israel-Lebanon talks in Washington as productive and positive, with discussions set to continue on Friday. Lebanon says it wants a ceasefire that Israel implements, while an Israeli government spokesperson said the talks are aimed at disarming Hezbollah and reaching a peace agreement. The talks come as a fragile ceasefire is due to expire on Sunday, with Israel and Hezbollah continuing to trade attacks in southern Lebanon. Lebanon's health ministry says Israeli attacks have killed nearly 2,900 people, including almost 600 women, children, and medics. Around 1.2 million people have been displaced in Lebanon, while Israel says 17 of its soldiers have been killed in southern Lebanon, along with 2 civilians in northern Israel. The Washington meetings mark the highest-level contact between Lebanon and Israel in decades, with both sides broadening their delegations for this round. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has framed Israel's actions in Lebanon, Gaza, and Syria as part of a wider regional security approach.
The determination to strike those who seek our lives deep within their territory, far from our borders, the buffer zones we have created around us, in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, all these have changed the face of the Middle East. We will continue to fight forcefully against every threat of radical Islam. At the same time, we will expand cooperation with moderate actors in our region who have understood the advantages of extending a hand to Israel.
Israel says its troops remain in a self-declared security zone in South Lebanon to shield northern Israel from Hezbollah attacks.
Search and rescue operations have ended in Kyiv after a Russian strike destroyed part of a residential building, killing at least 24 people. Ukraine says the attack was part of one of the largest aerial assaults of the war, as both sides report fresh drone strikes, and the UN condemns an attack on a humanitarian convoy.
Search and rescue operations have concluded in Kyiv after a Russian strike caused part of a residential building to collapse, killing at least 24 people, including 3 children, and injured dozens. Ukraine says Russia launched more than 1,500 drones alongside dozens of missiles in what officials described as one of the war's largest aerial assaults. President Volodymyr Zelensky said preliminary investigations showed a recently manufactured Russian Kh-101 missile struck the Kyiv apartment block.
We are investigating in detail exactly which weapons, missiles and drones the Russians used this time. According to preliminary data, a Kh-101 missile struck a building in Kyiv. It was manufactured in the second quarter of this year, which means that Russia is continuing to import the components for missile production, the necessary resources and equipment in circumvention of global sanctions. This must be a real priority for all our partners, to stop Russia's schemes to circumvent sanctions.
Zelensky also visited the site of the strike, where officials say emergency teams are transitioning to recovery and reconstruction efforts. Rescuers removed more than 3,000 cubic meters of debris during the operation, while psychological assistance was provided to 398 people. Meanwhile, the United Nations says one of its humanitarian convoys came under drone attack while delivering aid in the southern city of Kherson.
As usual, we plan carefully our missions. We are very concerned about security given the constant conflict. We have notified the military, both the Ukrainian and the Russian side. But unfortunately, immediately after passing the bridge, entering Austria, a drone hit one of our cars. Luckily, nobody was hurt. We could go to the place where we were supposed to go. deliver the assistance. And then while we were doing that, a second drone attack, again, one of our cars.
The aid convoy later completed its mission before being evacuated by local authorities. No injuries among UN staff were reported. In Russia, at least 3 people have been killed in the city of Ryazan after authorities reported a Ukrainian drone attack. The strike damaged apartment buildings and hit an industrial facility. Ukrainian drones have increasingly targeted Russian oil and gas infrastructure in recent weeks as part of a broader campaign to disrupt Moscow's energy revenues, a major source of funding for the Kremlin's war effort.
Russia and Ukraine exchanged 205 prisoners of war each on Friday in a deal tied to a 3-day ceasefire brokered earlier this month by US President Donald Trump. The two sides also exchanged the bodies of soldiers killed in the war, with Russia returning 526 bodies to Ukraine and receiving 41 in return. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called the swap the first step in a larger agreement after Kyiv and Moscow pledged to exchange 1,000 prisoners each under the ceasefire arrangement. Ukrainian officials said many of the freed servicemen were captured during the months-long defense of the southeastern port city of Mariupol, which fell to Russian forces in 2022. Keir Starmer is facing renewed pressure after the resignation of Health Secretary Wes Streeting triggered a cabinet reshuffle and fresh questions over Labor's direction. The political fallout comes as Labor tries to recover from heavy local election losses and growing unrest inside the party.
Will this budget save Starmer?
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has appointed James Murray as Britain's new health minister after the resignation of Wes Streeting added to growing pressure on the Labour government. Lucy Rigby was also named Chief Secretary to the Treasury, replacing Murray in the Finance Ministry. Streeting stepped down on Thursday, saying he had lost confidence in Starmer's leadership following heavy Labour losses in recent local elections. In his resignation letter, he said the party needed a wider debate about its future leadership and direction. Starmer responded by thanking Streeting for his work in government and said Labour must continue delivering on its promises after returning to power in 2024. The political uncertainty deepened further after Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham announced plans to seek a return to Parliament through a by-election expected to follow the resignation of Labour lawmaker Josh Simons. The developments have intensified scrutiny over Starmer's leadership as Labour attempts to recover from its recent election setbacks.
We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue to look at the latest developments shaping British politics and government stability. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching A News. Now, as we saw in our last story there, Keir Starmer is facing fresh pressure inside Labor, with questions growing over party unity and the government's direction. To discuss this further, let's bring in Alexander Seal, UK political correspondent, joining us from London. Alexander, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Now, Wes Streeting's resignation appears to have significantly intensified pressure on Keir Starmer. How serious is this politically for the Prime Minister?
It is very serious because Streeting did not simply resign quietly over policy disagreements. He explicitly questioned Keir Starmer's leadership. That matters enormously in Westminster politics. A cabinet government in Britain depends heavily on discipline and collective loyalty. Senior ministers are generally expected to support the Prime Minister publicly. So when somebody as important as Streeting resigns and effectively says he no longer believes Starmer can lead successfully, it damages the Prime Minister's authority inside his own party. And importantly, Streeting comes from Labour's centrist modernising wing, not the traditional Labour left. That means this is not just an ideological rebellion. It is a dissatisfaction emerging to the political core of the government itself.
So how do you analyse this? Is this a genuine leadership survival crisis for Starmer now? Have we moved beyond routine political criticism?
I don't think so. And I don't think Starmer will resign voluntarily at this stage. I think he will fight on very aggressively. Starmer sees himself as as a politician who restored Labour's credibility after the Corbyn years and brought the party back into power after 14 years of Conservative government. He was the first Labour leader since Tony Blair to win a general election. He has also publicly signaled that he intends to continue. He gave a speech a few days ago after the local election setbacks. He would no longer walk away and plunge the country into chaos. More recently, he has tried to relaunch his leadership through a strong pro-Europe message focused on economic cooperation and stability. So psychologically and politically, he is behaving like somebody preparing for a political battle and not preparing to resign. The danger for him is not whether he wants to stay. The danger is whether Labour MPs continue to believe he can still win against Reform UK and Nigel Farage.
So how united is the Labour Party currently behind Starmer, particularly as speculation over alternatives appears to be growing?
Yes, absolutely. And there is also Andy Burnham, the mayor of Greater Manchester, who represents a very different style of politics, of Labour politics. As in your report, an MP resigned to leave Burnham come back into Westminster. So Keir Starmer is viewed as disciplined, managerial and technocratic, and Andy Burnham is viewed as more emotional, more instinctive politically, and more connected to working class Northern England. Many Labour members believe Burnham understands the frustrations driving voters towards Nigel Farage and Reform UK better than the current leadership does. And crucially, this is no longer just media speculation. A Labour MP has resigned and his seat to create a route for Burnham to return to Parliament. So that makes Burnham a real political factor rather than simply a hypothetical alternative. And there is also Wes Streeting. So the Labour Party is divided, but I think Starmer will stay on.
And could this crisis, Alexander, begin affecting the government's ability to govern effectively, particularly on economic and policy issues?
I think so, but because first of all, Keir Starmer, he on the EU and trying to reverse Brexit, he still rules out rejoining EU, the single market, or the freedom of movement. But politically, he is clearly trying to remove Britain closer to Europe, and economically and diplomatically. So Reform UK will absolutely attack him for that and argue that Labour is softening Brexit gradually. So Starmer is not trying to reverse Brexit formally. He is trying to normalize Britain's relationship with Europe. And also lots of people in Britain are still suffering from inflation, from the cost of living crisis. So that's why Labour lost in the local elections. And Reform UK is going up because they think that Nigel Farage can understand working class people. So with other members, with other MPs trying to run for a potential leadership campaign in the Labour Party, as Andy Burnham or Wes Streeting or perhaps Ed Miliband, it could create division in the Labour Party. But now the Labour Party wants to govern, and Keir Starmer will fight on.
Britain has already experienced market instability during previous leadership crises, as you touched on earlier. Could renewed political uncertainty begin affecting economic confidence again?
First of all, the markets are not doing very well in Britain and also parts of the world. But I think Keir Starmer could survive formally as Prime Minister while gradually losing political authority inside Labour. In Westminster politics, survival and control are not always the same thing. So the real question is not on whether Starmer will remain in office. The real question is whether Labour MPs still believe he can politically defeat Reform UK in the future. And also, Keir Starmer wants to. There was a King's speech the other day in Parliament when he opened Parliament, and so right now Labour is trying to bring its manifesto and also have new laws coming in. So it takes a lot of time. So whether regarding economics or politics internationally, Starmer and his government will continue.
Okay, Alexander, a final question now. Looking ahead, what indicators should we watch most closely to assess whether Starmer can politically survive this crisis?
Yes, my personal reading is that Starmer fights on rather than resigning. He genuinely believed he restored Labour's credibility and returned the party to government. He is not psychologically somebody who retreats easily under pressure. But I also think something fundamental has changed. Once a senior minister publicly questions your leadership, Starmer's leadership, and MPs begin preparing alternative futures around figures like Andy Burnham, the succession debate has already begun politically, even if Starmer remains Prime Minister.
Alexander, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. I appreciate your analysis.
Thank you.
Now, after the break, we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. Stay with us. Welcome back to A News, and now we turn to our regional stories. Leaders of the Turkic states have gathered in Kazakhstan for an informal summit focused on digital development, artificial intelligence and regional cooperation. The meeting in the city of Turkestan comes as member states seek closer coordination amid growing geopolitical and economic challenges. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev said the organization's international role is growing, while Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan stressed the importance of solidarity in the face of regional crises. Leaders also highlighted the growing role of transport corridors, digital integration and cybersecurity, with Uzbek President Shavkat Mirziyoyev proposing a new alliance for digital infrastructure protection. Earlier, my colleague Orkan Amashov spoke with one of the participants at the event and asked why Turkestan, officially regarded as the spiritual capital of the Turkic world, matters in the context of Turkic integration.
Actually, Turkestan, yes, as you mentioned, is spiritual capital of Turkic world, and in my point of view, Turkestan also like as a center of Turkic world that have common historic and cultural connections. Which connects all Turkic states, and in this regard, I think that Turkestan will further develop, and in the future we will see other meetings in Turkestan. And today's informal summit of OTS, it is the start of Turkestan's bright future also.
And for more on this, Orkan Amashov sent us this report with the latest developments.
The informal meeting of the heads of state of the Organization of Turkic States has concluded here in the city of Turkestan, the spiritual capital of the Turkic world, with the adoption of the Turkestan Declaration, a substantial part of which deals with the matters related to AI governance, digital transformation, digitalization of practically every aspect of our life, including connectivity and governance, and many other related matters central to the concept of Turkic unity and Turkic integration. Of course, the one thing which is very essential and springs to one's mind while discussing this particular informal summit is the location. The very first informal summit took place in Shusha back in 2024. Hungary was there as an observer state. We remember that. Second one was in Budapest. And third one is taking place here in Kazakhstan, in a city which is widely acknowledged as of 2021 as a cultural, spiritual capital of the Turkic world. Of course, this place has got its own unique underpinnings. It's a cradle of Kazakh culture. It's very close, by the way, to Kazakh-Uzbek border, not far away from it. And in many ways, in the person of the Hoca Ahmed Yasavi, which is an embodiment of the cultural, the elements associated with the very core of Kazakh national dignity and also wider Turkic world, and many developments of vital significance are taking place. I mean, of course, there's a melange of culture, history, and the embodiment of which happens to be the mausoleum of Hoca Ahmed Yasavi, the blue, the turquoise dome of which seems to dominate the skyline here in this lovely city of Turkestan. In the same way as that dome dominates the landscape here, the many future-oriented, digital-related matters are dominating the landscape within the context of the meeting of the heads of state. All the major states are present here, including President Aliyev, who arrived, and during his speech he put a special emphasis on the close relations between the city of Turkestan and Shusha, and also, of course, many other related matters involving digital connectivity between primarily Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, with cyber optic cable being mentioned. And it has been said, and President Aliyev was very clear, that in the coming months we will see the further implementation of that very project, but also, of course, the central underlying sensibility driving the discussion here was about digital sovereignty, AI facilitated induced language models, with the impression given that basically the Turkic world is charting a new path, and within that path there is a unique Turkic civilizational identity. Today, talking about Turkic civilizational identity, the virtual groundbreaking ceremony of the Turkic Civilizational Center happened as well. Well, of course, however informal this meeting may be, this summit may be, the designation informal does not limit the significance attached to this very meeting. It is important in its own right in the first place, with digital subject dominating the landscape here, but also, of course, it is laying, in a way, foundation for further discussions and for further, of course, formal meeting, which will take place in Turkey. Azerbaijan assumed the leadership of the chairmanship of the Organization of Turkic States back in last year, when the 12th formal summit took place in Gabala, and President Aliyev's speech was also, of course, very important in that very context as well. Well, Turkestan Declaration is incredibly important. It's also important to mention that in addition to the 5 major member countries, the president of the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus was present as well. There was no representation from Hungary, and of course questions have been asked about to what extent Hungary's foreign policy subsequent to the formation of a new government will change or not. There has been no indication that any change is in the offing, but that also has been the part of the discussion today in the city of Turkestan, in the spiritual capital of the Turkic world. Well, that's all for now. Elbrus Musayev, Orkan Amashov, A-News, Turkestan.
Experts are meeting in Baku as part of a pre-World Urban Forum event focused on sustainable urban development. The conference looks at how education, skills and innovation can strengthen cities and support long-term urban growth.
Baku is hosting a major international conference on sustainable urban development, focusing on how human capital can shape the cities of the future.
The conference, jointly organised by Baku State University and the State Committee on Urban Planning and Architecture of Azerbaijan, brings together policymakers, academics and international experts as part of Baku Urban Planning Week 2026. The discussions are set against the wider framework of the World Urban Forum, which experts say is turning urban challenges into opportunities for more sustainable cities.
What the World Urban Forum brings is knowledge, is opportunities for looking at the urban issues, not only at issues, but as opportunities for the future, to build cities that are more resilient, that are more inclusive, that provide more opportunities to the people and to the youth and to everyone, most importantly.
Experts say rapid urbanization is now one of the defining global trends, with cities facing growing pressure on housing and infrastructure.
As you know, that more than half of populations of the world is living in urban areas, and in the next 50 years the world is going to be urban. As you know, the WOF 13 topic is mostly about housing, and I believe that based on this WOF 13 we will come up with a certain type of the policy recommendations how to make the housing in the world not only affordable but also resilient and more people-oriented.
In this context, the focus is on sharing experience and strengthening international cooperation in urban development.
And I was very honored.
We think that in coming years we will be able to fill some gaps in this area. Azerbaijan has a great potential and also very interesting experience in this area that can display and to share this experience with regional countries as well as at international level.
The event features panel discussions on how cities can better prepare for future challenges through education, innovation and cross-sector cooperation. Key topics include climate resilience, affordable housing, digital transformation, AI in urban governance and strengthening institutional frameworks.
A shipment of wheat from Russia to Armenia passed through Azerbaijan on Thursday after departing from Bilajari station. The train is carrying 970 tons of grain in 14 wagons and is expected to travel through Georgia before reaching Armenia. The transit, taking place on the 15th of May, follows the same regional route used for other recent deliveries. Baku's Anima Film Festival is bringing animated cinema to life for its 9th edition, with this year's program built around the theme of the sea. The festival features premieres, international films, pitching sessions and masterclasses, while also using animation to connect younger audiences with culture, creativity and environmental awareness. A News' Narchicek Jahangirli has more.
A festival as colorful and lively as the sweetest childhood memory. This is the feeling the Anima Film Festival gives its guests regardless of age as they gather for its 9th edition. It is a celebration that promotes creativity through animated cinema and unites children, young people, animation directors and studios, introducing them to international experience. At the opening ceremony, guests watched the premieres of the children's animated series Easy and Pity and the short animated film Porridge Monster. The hall is buzzing, everyone excited to see the animation for the first time. I'm also finding my place because Easy and Pity is about to steal the show.
I really like this animation because in every episode, Issy visited a new region. In each episode, he called and talked with his grandmother and grandfather. I especially like the Sheki episode because I've been to Sheki myself.
This year, the festival's geography expanded even further with the official competition program featuring 31 films from 20 different countries. The selected films stand out for their visual richness and innovative animation techniques.
The narrative is the most important thing in the animation that we're choosing to qualify for the prize. So yeah, the visuals, the narrative is really important, and I'd say the author's overall eagerness to see their project come alive. It's really important, the energy and the vibe of them.
Each festival edition is dedicated to a new theme. This year, Anima Film invites participants on a sea journey, choosing a sea dog as its main motive. Zulfugar, a biodiversity expert who advised the Anima Film team on sea dogs, explained why marine biodiversity matters.
Caspian seal is the only mammal found in the Caspian Sea, and it's heavily endangered according to some numbers. There might be some academic work about the animals, about the nature, about the biodiversity, but obviously the children are not going to read the academic papers, so there have to be some way of science communication between the academics and the children and in general the population. And I think animations, books, or any kind of like a integration between the knowledge and the people is an important aspect of bringing it together.
During the festival, we also attended an international pitching competition where animators from nearly 20 countries presented their projects to the jury. Entries from countries such as Egypt, Venezuela and Morocco focused on the cultural and social issues within their communities while targeting a broader audience. The festival continues with screening hundreds of animated films and hosting masterclasses, conferences, performances and exhibitions.
Iran's parliamentary speaker has warned that the US military blockade of Iran's southern ports could trigger a new global financial crisis as the Tehran-Washington Strait of Hormuz standoff persists. Our correspondent from Tehran brings us more.
Iran's parliamentary speaker has warned that the United States' efforts at sustaining military escalation near the Strait of Hormuz could trigger a fresh global financial crisis. Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf made the remarks in a post on X on Thursday. The Iranian parliamentary speaker quoted a breaking news on U.S. inflation rate after selling 30-year bonds at 5% yield for the first time since 2007, the year of global financial crisis. He was referring to the U.S. Navy's blockade of the Iranian southern ports and Washington's escalating standoff over Tehran's control of the Strait of Hormuz, connecting the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman. Meantime, the spokesman of the judiciary, Asghar Jahangir, defended the seizure of U.S.-linked tankers, saying it was based on domestic and international law and not equal to what he branded as U.S.'s act of piracy against Iran's ships. He said in a statement on Thursday, according to the 1982 Convention on the Law of the Sea, a coastal state can seize ships of another country for violating domestic and international laws and regulations in its maritime territories or on the high seas. And Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, who is in New Delhi to take part in the BRICS ministerial meeting, reacted to the US President Donald Trump's new threat of war with Iran during his visit to Beijing. Speaking to reporters on the sidelines of the meeting, he said that the U.S. should seek a solution to its dispute with Iran somewhere other than the military arena. Iran's top diplomat said, "I hope they will put aside this rhetoric and move toward logic. They will not achieve anything from adopting this path." Turaj Shiraliru, reporting from downtown Tehran for A News.
Iraq's new Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi has been sworn into office with only a partial cabinet after Parliament failed to agree on several key ministerial positions. Lawmakers approved 14 ministers but failed to reach an agreement on key positions, including the Interior and Defence ministries. The parliamentary session saw heated disputes after objections were raised over the nominee for Interior Minister. Bassem Mohammed was appointed Oil Minister, while Fuad Hussein retained his post as Foreign Minister. As countries seek to strengthen energy security and renewable cooperation, attention is turning to two major projects linking the South Caucasus with European markets. At a regional summit in Athens, Georgia outlined its ambitions to become a key energy transit hub, connecting the region to Europe. Here's more on that story.
This week in Athens, Georgia's economy minister Mariam Krivishvili joined more than 270 representatives from Southeastern Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean at the Energy Summit. On the same stage, the Greek Prime Minister, the Israeli President, the Gulf Cooperation Council Secretary General and senior European Commission officials. At the ministers' panel on delivering the 2030 energy transition, Krivishvili set out Georgia's targets: 11,500 megawatts of installed capacity within 10 years, over $1 billion committed to transmission infrastructure, and a shift from energy self-sufficiency toward active electricity export. The centerpiece is the Black Sea submarine cable. The project would connect Georgia to Romania via a 1,195-kilometer underwater high-voltage line running from Anaklia to Constanta, designed to carry Azerbaijani and Georgian renewable energy directly into the EU grid. Brussels has granted it project of mutual interest status, unlocking accelerated permitting and potential co-financing. Total investment stands at around 3.5 billion euros, with grants potentially covering between 30 and 75% of costs. But the project remains in preparation. Georgia allocated 25 million gel in 2025 budget for the cable, yet only 6.5 million had been spent in the first 10 months. Construction has not begun. Georgia also sits inside the Green Energy Corridor, a regional framework spanning Azerbaijan, Georgia, Romania, and Hungary, adding multilateral weight to its transit ambitions. The wider picture, however, is complicated. Georgian Dream's foreign agents law, closely modeled on Russian legislation, has been condemned by both NATO and EU officials. The government presenting Georgia as a European energy partner is the same one whose domestic track record has put that very partnership under significant strain. Nini Nikolaishvili, Tbilisi, A News.
We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll discuss the informal summit of the Organisation of Turkic States and the evolving role of the organisation itself. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching A News. We now shift our focus to a regional story for discussion. Leaders of the Organisation of Turkic States have gathered in the Kazakh city of Turkistan for an informal summit focused on regional cooperation, connectivity, economic integration, and the future direction of the Turkic world. The meeting comes as member states continue deepening cooperation across trade, transport, energy, culture, and strategic coordination amid a rapidly changing geopolitical environment across Eurasia. The summit also reflects the growing visibility of the Organisation of Turkic States as a regional platform seeking to strengthen political and economic ties among Turkic nations. Let's bring in our guest now. Zanat Mominkulov, a senior lecturer at Eurasian National University, joins us from Astana, Kazakhstan. Zanat, welcome to the program.
Hi there. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, the meeting is over. It's been about 10 minutes. The Organisation of Turkic States has become increasingly visible internationally in recent years, and the summit is being held in Turkistan, a city with deep historical and cultural symbolism for the Turkic world. How important is that symbolism in shaping the organisation's identity?
I believe that symbolism here is very important. So in fact, integration projects also need moral foundation. Turkestan carries exactly this kind of meaning for Turkic nations. So I think that the choice of Turkestan as a venue is successful because it will create not only a good-willing political atmosphere, but also emotional connection among leaders. I believe the city is associated with Hoca Ahmed Yesavi, one of the most prominent figure in Turkic history. So I think that symbolism matters because not only of the regional cooperation, but at the same time, the shared sense of identity and historical continuity.
Now, connectivity and transport cooperation remain central themes. How important is the middle corridor in strengthening ties between member states?
So I believe that the middle corridor is now becoming the backbone of the material backbone of the Turkic integration. It is a strategic mechanism connecting Anatolia, Caucasus, and Central Asia, Caspian region, and Turkestan region is becoming one of the important central geographic place in Eurasia as global supply chains are being reconstructed. The middle corridor increases the strategic value of the Turkic states as a transit and logistics hub between Europe and China.
Okay. Now, I know earlier you emphasized a moral foundation and you spoke of emotional connection, but are we now seeing the organization of Turkic states evolve from a largely cultural platform into a more serious economic and strategic bloc?
Yes, absolutely. Now we see that this organization is transforming from just merely symbolic or cultural into some pragmatic platform. Initially, of course, OTS was perceived as a cultural platform based on the identity, language, culture, but now it is gradually evolving into a pragmatic bloc of strategic partners and emerging middle powers. So the agenda today can focus on the transport issues, trade, logistics, digitalization, AI, and the energy and technological cooperation. So this means the organization is moving from just, this symbolic integration towards limited functional integration. So I think that the external powers increasingly pay attention to the OTS because it sits at the intersection of the Europe, Asia, and other regions.
And Zanat, how much is the current geopolitical environment, including tensions involving Russia, China, and the West, influencing the organization's growing importance?
So I see that the current geopolitical environment plays a major role in increasing the importance of the organization because Turkic states are peaceful and stable. No war, no conflict. So the rivalry between major powers, disruptions in global supply chains, trade routes, and growing fragmentation in the international system has all increased the strategic value of the Turkic region. Of course, the bigger countries, even Western actors, may feel a certain degree of discomfort or uncertainty regarding deeper Turkic integration. However, it is important to emphasize that the OTS is not anti-Russian, is not anti-Chinese or anti-Western project. Rather, it is an attempt of Turkic states to strengthen regional peaceful coordination, connectivity, and strategic autonomy in this increasingly unstable world.
Mm-hmm. Now, President Ilham Aliyev also attended the summit. How active and influential has Azerbaijan become within the organization of Turkic states in recent years, and how significant is Baku's position in shaping its future direction?
Yeah, I'm sure that Azerbaijan has become one of the most active intellectual centers and influential members of the organization. So geographically, Azerbaijan is key connector state between Central Asia and Turkey, Caucasus. Without Azerbaijan, the idea of continuous Turkey connectivity space across the Caspian would be much more difficult to realize. At the same time, Azerbaijan has strengthened its position through active diplomacy, media policy, energy policy, and military experience. Today, Baku holds one of the central positions within the OTS framework and plays an important role in shaping the organization's strategic directions, plans, and expertise.
Zanat, that's all we have time for, unfortunately. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for your analysis.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's the news for this hour. Stay tuned to A News for all the latest updates.